Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Awaken Your Souls Journey podcast. I'm Angela, and so delighted to have you here with me because I have Tiff Carson with me today, and you are going to absolutely be enthralled with this story and learn so much from her. So, I want to tell you a little bit more about her first before I actually introduce her. Tiff Carson is an author, podcast host, and mental health advocate specializing in grief healing. Her book, Dancing in the Rain, reflects her dedication to vulnerable storytelling that ignites resilience. As the host of the podcast, Hard, Beautiful Journey, consistently in the top 5%, she explores themes like sibling grief, generational trauma, addiction recovery, and finding joy after loss. Tiff's vision extends to the Carson Wellness Group, promoting spiritual and holistic well-being, and her influential social media presence champions the motto, "Use your voice." Tiff Carson is a beacon of inspiration for those seeking healing and peace in challenging times. And these are challenging times. And so what you do is so important. So welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to chat with you. Yeah, it's such important work that we need to do right now.
Yes. So I read your book. Your journey is all in here, and absolutely heartbreaking story, and yet so inspiring because the way that you moved through all of this and how you have created this life now is really what, the message that I'm looking to put out there with this podcast. And so you're such a wonderful fit for this.
Thank you.
So tell us just, give the audience a little bit of a background on how you got to do what you do.
Wow. I'll try and do the Coles Notes version, but yeah, I've had a pretty hard, beautiful journey, and that's why I called my podcast that name. It basically started with a 10-year infertility journey with my ex-husband at the time. And we ended up getting 3 kids from our IVF journey. And then all 3 of our kids ended up getting diagnosed with ADHD and ODD, oppositional defiance disorder. And I thought that was hard. I thought that was, and it really was. I'm not minimizing it at all. It was very, very challenging and difficult. And then around 2018, I started to have a really difficult mental health journey. And it was, I think, just a culmination of the years of hormones, fertility drugs, and dealing with a very challenging parenting journey that it was breaking me. And I had no idea what to do. I found myself behind the clothes in my closet one day after having a really difficult parenting moment. And I remember sitting in that closet behind the clothes, praying that my kids would not find me anymore. And because I just couldn't deal anymore. It was like my brain just gave up. And I was in that closet, and I remember hearing God say to me, showing me actually a fork in the road. And it was either take this road or take this road. And the one side was check out and not deal anymore, or get help and find a way to move through this pain. And that's when I came out of there and I phoned my mom and I said, "Mom, I need you to come. I need you to come and be with me." And I went to therapy pretty much right away after that. And it was in that therapy session, those sessions, where my therapist said, "You're supposed to do something with this pain. You're supposed to do something with this. You were given this road for a reason." And I thought she was batshit.
Mm-hmm.
Like, really? Like, I was like, because that's where I was, right? In my brain, I was like, what are you talking about? Like, I'm just trying to survive the day to day, and you want me to do something with this and help other people with this. Like, I was still in the deep, why me? Why me? Why did I get this road? I was very angry at God in that closet. I was very, very mad that we had a 10-year infertility battle. And then we had to now parent very difficult children at that time. So I didn't understand what I was supposed to do because I was still in that angry phase. I was still in the why me phase. And it took a bit, like a few months. And then I remember driving home from work one day and I was listening to a podcast and I heard, now that I know it's in my soul, I start a podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I got to talking about my pain and using my voice and really opening up and being vulnerable about what I've been through and sharing the hard moments. And it's just opened up this whole new world for me. And it's incredible.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's amazing what you've come through. And you know, I was looking a little bit at your website and I see that through all of this and the loss of your brother, we can talk some more about that.
Mm-hmm.
But through all of this, you have masterfully created these pillars of healing, and you've matched them with the chakras, which I think is brilliant.
Thank
And
you.
so, I really want to dive more into that because I think that people looking for help, like you were, with your
Mm-hmm.
therapist, um, are a little hesitant to step into things. They're a little bit, um, well, what can they do to help me? This
Mm-hmm.
is what I'm going through, and especially if you're in that why me stage, you think that there's no hope, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The world that's done all of this to me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit more about those pillars of healing.
Sure. So how that came to be was, um, well, my brother passed away in late 2021 of a fentanyl overdose. And about 6 months after that, my husband and I separated and eventually ended up getting a divorce. And so it was a very, very difficult time for me. And I found that the more that I used these pillars that I'm going to talk about, the more that I felt my heart was healing day by day, minute by minute. And one of them, I start at the bottom, honor your body, and that's the root chakra. And when we honor our body and we honor our physical vessel, it definitely can carry us through some really challenging moments. And the one that I always talk about is sleep and getting rest. And I've always been a napper, but especially in the deep moments of grief, slowing down and giving our body that time to adjust and rest is so critical in the grief journey. In any journey, actually, our bodies need rest and recovery, and our bodies need healthy food, and our bodies need to move. And that's how I processed a lot of the grief from my brother passing away and my marriage ending, was moving my body or honoring my body. And that's why I call it that. And I call it hashtag Project Tiff. And it's basically I'm really good at finishing projects for other people at work, with my kids, with the podcast. I'm really good at completing those projects and making them successful. And that's why I intentionally called it #Project Tiff, because now I'm the project. And now I'm honoring myself, and other people will benefit from that as well. So that's the first pillar. Another one is find your community. I cannot tell you how much different my life is because of this pillar. Prior to 2018, I have been an introvert all of my life. And in 2017, 2018, I distinctly remember actually saying to my husband at the time, I feel called to put myself out there more. I need to start talking. I need to start volunteering. And that's where I started, was volunteering. And the thought of me being in a room with other people and having to open my mouth actually terrified me, like legit terrified me, shaking in my boots. And I used to have a book actually on my shelf called Painfully Shy. That's how painfully shy I was, is that I had a book with that title on my shelf, trying to help me work through being painfully shy. So I started with our kids' PTA. And I went to that first meeting and I was, like I said, terrified. I sat at the back. I like avoided eye contact. I was just like, don't look at me. I just want to actually force myself to be in this room. And if the opportunity comes where I need to speak, I will try my best. And so little by little, I would volunteer for something small, where it was like a 1 hour commitment, or like hot lunch or something, right? Where I'd be like, okay, I have to be next to this person for 1 hour, so I'm going to have to converse. And it was those moments over a few years where I built up that courage to be around other people. And it was in doing that that I found myself in different online groups or business groups, and I would still sit there on these Zoom calls and like be terrified if somebody called on me. Like, or like, like terrified, please don't call on me, please don't call on me. And then I remember saying to my husband at the time, I said, I'm going to put up my virtual hand. I'm going to put up my virtual hand and see how it goes. And I did. And it was like, I can't even describe that first time when I got called on to talk and people listened to me. And it was like, oh my Lord, they care about what I have to say. This is so cool. And it just gave me the courage to do it again. And it was through these moments of using my voice and like being in the rooms, I call them, and being in either virtually or in person, that I found my community. And it's just expanded. Like, I can't even describe how wide it's expanded. I have friends literally from all over the world now because of putting myself out there, that are true champions. Like, they want me to succeed and they are my friends. And it's been a huge part of getting through some of these really hard times.
Beautiful. Yeah, that's so important. Both of those are so important. Yeah.
Another one is use your voice. And it's on my back wall right there. Like I said, it was part of speaking up and being in those rooms, but it was also having the courage and using being vulnerable with sharing my story, and being okay sharing my story, and having a podcast and opening my mouth and talking, because it's helped heal me. Every time I share my story, every time I cry, it helps heal my heart. Every single time I do it. And I can feel it healing every time I share it. And I think it's because I know that by sharing it, it's helping somebody else.
Right.
It's not just helping me. I know that it's helping somebody else. And so the more that I use my voice and you use your voice, the more that we are helping other people. Another one is ignite your gratitude. And gratitude is huge for me. I have a gratitude practice that I do every single day. And I always find something to be grateful for, even on the hardest days. Even when I found out that my brother passed away, I had something to be grateful for. As I was driving to be with my family in Medicine Hat, I was thanking him and I was thanking God for getting me there safely, because I don't remember 10 minutes of that drive, like not at all. And so those moments of being grateful for even the hardest moments is what really gets you through the hard days. Yeah.
I completely agree about the whole gratitude process. And I went through a similar thing, started that gratitude journey, knowing the background and the research, but at first not really using it until I felt like I really needed something. And so I was basically grasping at straws. And when I started that, it became almost addicting. Like I had to do that every day because I knew that it was helping me. And it just changes everything when you start to look for the good in things rather than what's going wrong. And so your whole mindset changes through that. And it's so easy to do.
It really is.
Yeah.
And you don't have to write it down.
No.
Like that's where some people say, I don't have time to do a gratitude journal. And it can be just thinking it. It can be driving and thinking it and acknowledging that you're grateful for something. That is part of the journey as well, right? And so if you don't do a gratitude practice, start with that. Start with when you're driving. Think of one thing that you can be grateful for. I do this with so many people that I work with that are having a hard time. And I just, first of all, I get them to breathe if they're having a hard time. And then I ask them to connect with something that they can be grateful for in that moment. And you can actually see the shift in their body language when they take that time to like, oh, yeah, no, I remember. I'm really grateful for this. And it's like their whole body relaxes.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that is a really big pillar for me. It's a big pillar for my children as well. Since the time they were little, we've done a gratitude practice in our house, and usually at mealtime. And it's really interesting to see their process when they're going through it. And sometimes they get angry if I happen to forget our gratitude practice. They're like, whoa, we can't leave the table yet. We need to do our gratitude. I'm like, oh, that's awesome.
So cool.
Yeah, it's so cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, that one is a big one.
Huge. Yes. Yeah.
Another one is nurture your soul. And that is, for me anyway, has been an ongoing, and it will be an ongoing journey for me through my spiritual awakening and my spiritual journey. And that is where I use my meditation practice, my breath work, and that's where I really lean into connecting with my guides and with my brother and with God, and and just really sit and be quiet and listen to what they're telling me and guiding me on. And lately, this has been really hard for me. I love listening to music when I drive to work. I have about a 35, 40-minute commute, and I have gotten into the practice of not turning it on. I turn off the music when I get in the car, and I actually have conversations with my guides now. And I'm trying to, right now, I'm working on trying to discern who is who.
Yeah.
Who's telling me this? Is this me? Is this me thinking, like you, because there's
Yes.
still that like, is this
Mm-hmm.
real?
Yes.
So I'm working on that right now. So that to me is what I mean by nurture your soul is really just stopping and being quiet
Mm-hmm.
and listening to that internal, that intuition that all of us have, and just believing and trusting in it.
Yeah. And the driving in the car is the greatest place. Like you wouldn't think so.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But there's something to that because I will do that too. Um, Not always, but there's a yearning almost to connect.
Mm-hmm.
And I find in the car when I'm driving on the highway and there's, very little other traffic other than,
Mm-hmm.
just connecting and
Mm-hmm.
talking to them out
Mm-hmm.
loud. Like, this is what I'm thinking, or this is, it just seems to really release some energy or some emotion that's there, just ready to come up. And lots of downloads have come to me through the car.
Mm-hmm. A
Driving in the
lot.
car and receiving downloads. It's like, woo, this is something I should do. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's turning off the everything, like
Yes.
turning off your phone, turning off the music, turning off all of it, and just and trying to turn off the chatter, like the work and the to-dos, and I just breathe. Like I find when I like just even when I'm driving, just take deep breaths
Mhm.
and like get calm, and I find I'm a much nicer driver when I do this. I don't swear at people because I live in Calgary, so it's
Mhm.
crazy here sometimes.
Yes.
Um, so yeah, that's a big one for me. And another one is awaken your joy. And I don't know how many times I have told people about this, but I am going back to figuring out what I liked to do when I was little and really trying to connect back to those moments when I was little and what was it that made me so happy when I was a little girl. And one of them was drumming. My dad is a musician, and so we spent a lot of time hanging out with the band, or they would have practices in our basement or whatever, right? And I always gravitated towards the drums. And I would sit on the drummer's stool and I would just hammer away at those drums when they weren't busy. And so, anyway, about 5, 6 years ago, my husband at the time bought me a drum kit, and it sat in our house and collected dust. And when I was doing this, where I was like, hey, what was it when I was little that made me so happy? And one of them was drumming. So I got one of my downloads when I was driving that I should just practice drumming, see if you like it or not. And so I found a drumming instructor here in the town that I live in. And I went for about 6 sessions and I had the best time,
Mhm.
the best time. And the instructor himself was just one of the funniest people that I have met, and I laughed so much. At the end of the day, well, I was actually pretty good at drumming. He was very impressed with how and I think it was just because I loved it so much when I was little, and that I have the beat and the rhythm and everything. And um, but at the end of the day, I don't want to continue being a drummer, but I found something that sparked that joy in me that has actually kept going, where I want to keep finding those things.
Mm-hmm.
And it gave me, for those 6 sessions, those 6 weeks, I had joy. I was laughing when I could just be sitting at home grieving or being sad, or and so that's where I really encourage people to try and think about what you really liked when you were little
Yeah.
and try that again.
And having something to look forward to, right?
Mhm.
You would have looked forward to those sessions every week.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. What song am I going to learn this week?
Yeah.
Oh, Lord. What crazy joke is he going to tell now?
Mhm.
So, yeah. And another one is just honoring your story and write your story. Like I wrote about my brother passing away in my memoir, Dancing in the Rain. And that I still honestly can't believe that I did it. In the time that I did write it, I started writing it 2 months after he passed away. And many people say don't write that soon after a loss. And I don't know, I have to disagree, because it was very, very healing to sit by water. I wrote by water. I don't know about you when you wrote your book, but when I was writing, I could not write inside of walls. It
Mhm.
was like the walls were like saying, heck no,
Yeah.
I'm not giving you any words.
Get it.
And yeah, and so I took my beach chair and I would go to a river, or I would go by a lake. I went by the ocean. I went into the Kananaskis, into the mountains. And when I did that, it was like the words were just flowing through my fingers. I can't even describe it other than that. Another way that I would describe it is, especially by the ocean or like a river or something, mainly the ocean. I wrote there twice. It was like, um, as the waves were coming in, it was bringing memories and
Mhm.
stories for me to like think about, not necessarily write all of them, but like think about and remember. And then as the waves went out, it took all of the sadness or the pain. And it was very like, the waves were very healing. And the stories that I knew I was supposed to put in the book, those were the ones that stayed with me until they actually came out through my fingers.
Yeah.
And I was just like, okay, you're staying. And that's how my book came to be, was just being quiet again, being quiet and listening to what I knew I needed to share that could help somebody else.
Mhm.
It took 18 months for me to write it, and a lot of tears and a lot of what ifs and a lot of oh my lords, and should I be doing this? But every part of the book, every chapter in the book, I said, what is the intention of this chapter? Why does it need to be told? And who can it help? And I think that's where listening and answering those questions is what gave me the confidence to put it out into the world. And I cannot tell you how many people I've heard from that it has helped them. And it helped me as well. My grief journey, I think, would have been a lot darker and a lot more sad if I didn't actually go through that process and honor my brother in that way, and myself, and our relationship.
Your story is so vulnerable. You share so much in there. And so I can see why, you would hesitate to put that out there.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that what you're talking about, writing in nature
Mm-hmm.
by the water, because I was out at my campsite when I did mine. I was
Mm-hmm.
out in the trees. It's kind of my favorite place. So it was in that space that truly started to come out, and I had been writing blog posts, and what you described there about what I was going through emotionally, I would take and just regurgitate it onto the paper in a way that as I was writing, it was releasing, and it would come out in a positive way. It wasn't like it would come out healed almost.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because as you're writing, you're processing and you're starting to think about, what is this story that I'm telling myself?
Mm-hmm.
And how can I reframe this so that
Mm-hmm.
it can help someone else, like you say? And yeah, so beautiful, beautiful.
There was I also like to let people know about this part in my writing journey because it's important. There was a point in my writing journey where I was working with a book writing coach, and she made me scrap 20,000 words.
Mm.
I was at 40,000 at that point, and she made me scrap 20,000. I'm like, what? Anyway, those 20,000 words went into what we call the manuscript scrap pile, in case I want to use them in another book or in other forms like blog posts or whatever. But those 20,000 words were also healing.
Mm.
They
Yes.
were also stories that I knew I needed to write about, share about, um, get out of my head, get out of my heart, and just release it. And so when people are like, I'm not a writer, I wasn't a writer either. Okay.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
was, there is no, no, that was not on my bingo card whatsoever, thinking that I was going to be an author. And it was just by slowing down and stopping and like, okay, I'm just gonna like get this out. And
Mhm.
it started by like writing even on a piece of paper and like burning whatever I didn't want somebody to read, right? Just to release that.
Mhm.
And then I moved to my laptop and I was like, okay, I'm just going to type a little bit here. And that's how that 40,000 words came to be. And I found another 40,000 after that. My book is about 60,000 words. So it does come, and it doesn't need to be shared with everybody. It can be just for you. And that's really important to acknowledge as well, is that your journey, your thoughts, your healing does not need to be read by anybody but you.
I completely agree.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And like, there's a lot of stuff that we've written that won't ever see the light of day,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but very healing process.
Very healing. Very, very healing. So yeah, that's why I've put this together, is just to kind of formalize, I guess, what I've gone through over the last 20 years and how I've worked through some really hard things. And I just want to encourage people to even take one of those pillars and try one of them and see if it gives your heart some relief. And it's called the Healing Heart Journey because our heart is the most important,
Mhm.
and not our brain. It is our heart. And when we heal that, that's when I truly believe life gets better for whatever journey you are going through.
Amazing. So your book, we want to make sure people know where to get it, how to get
Yes.
it.
Dancing in the Rain, that you
In
can
the
get
rain.
on, yeah, that you can get on Amazon. And you can also get it on the links on my website, tiffcarson.com. And yeah, and my podcast, Hard Beautiful Journey, is where I share some about it as well. And I talk with other people about their hard, beautiful journeys, including Angela's. And yeah, it's that has been the biggest joy actually in my life is my podcast, um, talking with other people and connecting with other people and just really giving people that safe space to share their journey.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting when you do that, you learn so much through that process too.
Mm-hmm.
It's way more than I would have thought.
Way more. I didn't expect to meet the people that I'm meeting when I started out doing it. I couldn't have even imagined the people that I have been meeting and connecting with. And it's helping other people. And that's the big part, and myself.
Yeah. So I'm encouraging everybody to check that out. Get the book, check out the podcast, Hard Beautiful Journey, and check out Tiff's website. And is there anything else that you want to add before you go?
Um, I think the biggest thing is just take care of yourself. If you don't take care of yourself, you can't help anybody. And for many, many years, I was in the mindset of, I need to help this person. I need to help my kids. I need to help so and so. I need to do all of this for other people. And it was when I made the switch to really taking care of myself first, my well-being in all of the ways, that I found I'm way better equipped to help all those other people.
Yes, absolutely. I hear an amen on that one.
Oh man.
Yeah. Yeah. So thank you again for taking the time to tell your story today and for all that you're doing to help the world, to help everyone. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on your podcast.
Yeah, and thanks everyone for watching, and bye for now.